So someone I follow called Jamie Todd Rubin, there's going to be a link to his post in the show notes, and wrote about the books that you read so far in 2019. I was going to say 2018, not 2018. And today I'm going to talk about the books that I've read so far in 2019. I've read about 40 books total. Not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to start with nonfiction, then go to fiction, and then show you some of the books that I have on my list to read for the rest of 2019. So buckle up. All right, first up, I got a lot of these books going to be like off and on. Quiet by Susan Cain. So this book was about basically the power of introverts, and in some ways the way that introverts have to suffer with an extrovert ideal and try to live in that. And that instead we should be looking at the power that introverts have. And one of those is being able to sit and focus for long periods of time, a la Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is another good book. I read that a couple years ago, and I need to get an actual copy of it. So I really like this because in many ways it gave me the authorization to realize that I hate conferences. Maybe I just shouldn't go. And this whole I need to be an extrovert and get out to conferences. But why? Why do I need to do this? So you will see me at less conferences. It's number one. Quiet. You should read it. If you think you're introverted, if it sounds appealing to you, read it and dash this back on the shelf. Next up is Being Dad is Weird. It's a Kindle copy, so I don't have one. This was a memoir about a guy's dad and how his dad was a little weird. And one of my favorite parts was, I'll tell you, fill in the story. Here's a quote from the book. This is actually a quote I heard, and this is why I bought the book. It says, he'd gotten some quiet time with his book, and I'd gone outside and pretended that I was Han Solo, counting pine needles or eating dirt. I'd done the kind of imaginary play that is good for kids, and I wouldn't have done if I'd immediately been able to force my dad to use his imagination instead of using mine. Kids need to make their own games and worlds. It's how they learn to be creative. So I like that because basically the kid said, hey, go play, Dad. And Dad said, sure, go outside. I'll be out in a bit. And the kid shows up in the story an hour later and says, hey, Dad, you didn't come outside. And Dad looks at him and says, it appears that's true. And then would join him, right? Dad got an hour with his book. So that was great. And just in general, that's what Dad does, right? I think in one of the stories, Dad's sitting around with friends talking, and one of those friends is like, hey, you're nuts hanging out, because Dad doesn't wear shorts, and it's the 70s and 80s short shorts. And he looks at the friend and says, and gets his nuts stuck in and keeps going with the story. And there's lots of stuff like that. Dad, you ate all the chocolate. It appears that would be true. And that's pretty nonchalant, right? Even in college, just giving money to his children, saying, spend it irresponsibly or something like that. So I really like that book. Good memoir, short read. I kept one or two quotes out of it, and that's about it. Next up, Kids These Days. Right here by Mr. Malcolm Harris. I liked this. There's a lot of good things about that book. I liked, and I think it did a good job of explaining a lot of what millennials have to deal with, and which this would classify me as millennials, and this one, it counts it as 1980 to 2000. Some other books count millennials as, I've seen 82, so my wife's one, I'm not. But yeah, it was a good book nonetheless, and it talked about really a lot of how people and businesses, how everything is pushing down a lot of the things that businesses used to provide. So where they used to provide technical education for you, now they say get it before you even show up. And how that we professionalize childhood. We don't take, school is children's labor, really. And how we don't even take that. We don't count it. We won't count it as production. And yeah, so it's a good book. Look for an upcoming review on that. I just started transcribing the notes. I finished that the second day of vacation, and then I didn't really look at it. I moved on to another book. And that other book is called The Revenge of Analog, which I borrowed from the library. I'm most of the way through that. It's sitting over on the shelf, a little too far away. So not going to grab that at this moment. Zucked. This is basically an early investor and advisor in Facebook says Facebook's terrible. I got it from the library because it looked interesting. I think I read about it after Irresistible, which I will talk about in a bit. And that was, good. It was good, and it, I suppose, in many ways reaffirmed how terrible Facebook is. Educated by Tara Westover. I say her name, I don't know why, because I just do. Is a story memoir of her life, autobiography of her life, and what feels like a slow motion train wreck. She comes out of what would be considered an abusive family, I suppose, in many ways, kind of cultish, and she just keeps going back. As the book kept going, I was like, no, you're not going to go back. And yeah, she went back again, and yeah, her brother beat her up again, and Yeah, it's a good book. I enjoyed the read, but over and over I was like, oh, really? Oh, my goodness. That's on my list of books to buy. I borrowed that from the library as well. I read it. My wife read it. Good book. Start, Love, Repeat is the next one. Oh, Start, Love, Repeat by Dorcas Cheng Tozin, I'm going to say. I hope that's right. So one of my long-term reading/writing projects is to expand on just running a business with your spouse and the negotiations that takes, and how not only your spouse can support the entrepreneur, but how the entrepreneur can make sure that they're supporting that other spouse as well. That was one of the books. This is the most recent one. There was a chain of 3 books. The other one is, what was it called? Do I have it in here? Oh, I don't. I only have the Amazon short links. There's 2 other ones, which I will have the links for in the show notes along with their titles. But this was the most recent one. It referenced both the other ones. That's why I found, I think, some of the other ones. One was a Startup Life series around marriage, and the other one was For Better or For Work, I think. I think those are the 2 titles. So this one was by far the best, the most comprehensive. Again, good book. Happy I own it. We're going to put that back on the shelf, too. Irresistible. This is about, I think I found this in Digital Minimalism. Anyway, it's about basically how technology is terrible and how everything you think your device is doing for you that's bad is even worse than you think. That's the short version. It's just even worse than you think. So, yeah, that's what it's about. I enjoyed it. It talks about behavioral addiction, big stuff on behavioral addiction and how apps, devices, sites are designed to addict us, basically. Digital Minimalism by Mr. Cal Newport. Oh, too shiny. By Mr. Cal Newport. Good book. I did write about it. There'll be a link to that review in the show notes. There'll be a link to Quiet in the show notes as well. Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport is kind of a follow-on to Deep Work. So Deep Work is that the hypothesis that we are moving more and more into a place where you need to focus instead of just randomly switching tasks, and you can't multitask anyways. And this is basically how to get yourself to a spot where you can focus. Starts with a 30-day detox, and then has a bunch of practices on how to divorce yourself from these devices, right? The one that's doing my show notes right now, or that I'm referencing as I talk. And finally, Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard. I am not currently wearing any Patagonia gear, but I have a Patagonia shirt sitting over there. And many days I am wearing lots of Patagonia gear. In fact, I think all my hats right now are Patagonia. So I am a Patagonia person enough that I get asked sometimes why, if I'm the rep. So this is by the founder of Patagonia, technically the founder of Black Diamond as well, because he started Patagonia as Chouinard equipment, I think. He started making hard gear like climbing hard things, carabiners, and then it kind of failed, and he sold that off, became Black Diamond to the employees of the company, and he kept Patagonia the clothing company. This is about how you treat yourself, how you can treat companies, how companies can treat their employees well, and how he continues to make steps to, even if it costs more for his goods, to make ethical choices for like his grandchildren, so that he is producing stuff that will help the environment, help the world be around for his grandchildren. I'm going to go back on the footstool. This is an upstairs book. Now fiction. I am almost finished. This tome called Wildwood by Colin Malloy, I'm going to guess. Colin Malloy. It's a good book. I found it at the local coffee shop. I'm going to put it down. And it's, if you like fantasy, if you like a bit of magic, some kid being a hero and talking animals, if Lord of the Rings was up your alley, that might be up your alley too. Good. Say I just had it at the local, at like the trade a book shelf at the local bookstore, local coffee shop. So I'm going to buy a copy. It was only $15 Canadian for a hardcover. So I'm going to buy that. Next up, Mr. Neil Gaiman, Ocean at the End of the Lane. I think there was some movie recently that's kind of based on this. So it's really good. You actually see characters from, I always call it Bod, but what's it called? The Boy in the Graveyard Book. There's actually characters from the Graveyard Book that they don't make an appearance, but say their family does. So again, short read, good read. Reading it to my eldest daughter right now. Takes a little bit to warm up, and then you really dig into the story. And it's a fairly short story. It's 100 pages or so. Good story. And then I read 3 books called The Fall of Shannara by Terry Brooks. So the first one is The Black Elfstone, good. The second one is The Scar Invasion, also good. And the third one is The Steel Assassin, which made me realize what the nag in the back of my head was, is that Terry Brooks rushes things. So he wants to, a little bit of spoiler, he wants to leave the book 3 in a cliffhanger, so you get book 4, and he basically takes like this super powerful druid and his really powerful like kids that he's teaching, and they get steamrolled like almost instantly by the other, fairly powerful druid. Like, and they go, hey, this is probably a trap, we need to make sure we have something ready. And then it's like 20 pages of them just getting steamrolled, like, I'm just going to chase after you, and then you catch me in your trap immediately, and all I do is like throw things at you, and that's it, and I can't even hit you. Throw my magic at you, but I don't even hit you. And then, the bad druid comes out and just like steamrolls the two like really powerful apprentices. So and that happens, and it just seems implausible. So yeah. Next up, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I think I actually heard this from Neil Gaiman. Said, hey, you should buy this book online. And I got it in Kindle, and then I probably forgot I pre-ordered it. And then one day it came through, and I was like, Cynthia, my wife, why'd you order this? And she's like, I didn't order it. So anyways, I ordered it. If you're into dragons, if you're into some magic, kind of a big political thing, it's a fairly long book, although it feels like for the detail they give a lot of the build-up, they kind of rushed through to the end. It felt like they kind of concluded fast. Happy with the conclusion. Good book. I'll likely read it again. I'll read it to my daughter when she's old enough, because they're into dragons and magic. But it felt a little rushed at the end. And finally, the Frontier Saga. I have read tons of them. What I just finished, for the Triumph of Evil. There's still more to read. I often will, like, I just need some, lighter fiction or just something, and I'll grab it generally on Kindle right now, and then I will just read it on a Saturday because it's light. It's more character driven than science driven, science fiction. Good book. Upcoming reads. First up is actually going to be Tipping Point. I went over to my local used bookstore and had all of other Malcolm Gladwell's other books, which I also bought at the same time, but they did not have Tipping Point. That's for my coaching program, which you can find out at curtismchale.ca/work-with-me. So we're reading that for the coaching program for early August. After that, I'm actually going to read Company of One with the same coaching program. And then following that, I've got a few options. I don't know if I can grab the whole stack. I'll grab it. I've got Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Well, I had to ruin my bookshelves. I'll stack it. How to Do Nothing by Jenny O'Donnell. That's a super flowery cover. It's, I guess, about being bored. Learning to be okay with being bored. The Death of Expertise by Tom Nichols. That one is about why we are happy with generalists and discount, let's say a scientist, right? Oh, Bob said this, so it must be true. Who cares what the scientist said? The Eye Connected Parent. This was like $1 at the books at the library, which is why it's all covered and says book sale on it, and it doesn't have their sticker anymore. But anyways, I got that for $1, and it looked interesting. It's about letting your kids go at college instead of being connected with them digitally all the time. Nonsense, The Power of Not Knowing, right there. Totally just picked this off the shelf because it looked interesting at the used bookstore like months ago, but I want to read it now. And then The Make Good Art Speech by Neil Gaiman. I didn't even have this. It wasn't originally on my list, but as I was grabbing books off my upstairs bookshelf, I said, hey, I'm going to read this. This is a pretty short one. It's kind of more, you can see, more designed. And it's a speech that he gave at a school, and there's a YouTube URL right at the beginning if you want to do that. If you want to watch it instead. On top of that, I also have 3 or 4 books at the library. Let me see if I can bring up my library books that I have on hold, which will come... Oh, that's not it. Which will come in the next few weeks. Do I have it? Pretty sure I was looking at that today. Nope, I don't have it. FVRL. I'm in the Fraser Valley, so I'm going to the Fraser Valley Library site, which is not mobile optimized. And log in. See what I've got checked out or got on hold. 3 books coming. I will generally read these when they come in. I actually check as I'm going to go pick a new book to start. I've got a couple books. My wife has some books out. Well, there you go. 5 days remaining. Oh, that's an audiobook. That's right. Return that book. Let's return this audiobook because we're not actually going to do it. So what do I have? I don't want checked out. I want on hold. On hold, I've got Unschooled, which is about just allowing education to be free. It says it's in transit. Well, there you go. Invisible Women. This is about how the world is designed for men, basically. So everything from office temperature, and women do better if office temperature is about 72, 71, I think anyways, but women would do better if it was 74. And unfortunately it's men. That actually changes how productivity or like the height of things. So that's interesting. It is, they don't even have it yet. So they had it as like, hey, we're getting it. But yeah, there's 7 holds. I'm actually not sure which hold I did. I put a hold on that for a while ago. And then range. Why generalists triumph in a specialized world. I totally put that one on hold today. A friend of mine was showing it on Goodreads, and I said, hey, that sounds interesting. So that's what I'm reading so far, and that's how I read. Let me know. Do you guys want to hear how I do like my notebooks, stuff like that, how I deal with my notes? I think I've done a blog post on that a while ago. But if you want to see it in video form, I can do a top-down shot and like walk you through how I deal with notes and how I deal with them between my notebook, because I do handwrite everything. Because I believe that if it's not worth handwriting, it's just not worth it. So don't write it. All the way to like how I think and how I've changed my notes. Even this year, I've changed how I take notes from the beginning of the year till now. Beginning of the year was a lot more quotes. Now it's a lot more summaries. And I put a page number with every summary so that I can refer back to it. And I borrow a lot from the library now, like Revenge of Analog from the library, but I will put that on my list of books to buy. So that's it. If you heard anything and you said, hey, that sounds like a cool book, or hey, Curtis, you would like this book as well, drop it in the comments below. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to support my work, support what I'm doing, you enjoy the content I'm putting out, then you can find that at patreon.com/Curtis McHale, or you could head to Amazon, search Curtis McHale, and buy some of my books. I've got a good book called Analog Productivity that is all about how you can bring more focus and more productivity to your work with pen and paper. Have a good one. Keep being awesome.